We're following the latest developments in Syria, where Russia has launched new airstrikes on the last major rebel-held hotspot. Intense clashes are underway in Idlib province.
This comes after President Trump warned the Syrian regime and its allies, Russia and Iran, not to attack the region. He said it would be a grave humanitarian mistake. For more now, we want to bring in CBS News foreign correspondent Debora Patta. She is joining us from Istanbul. So, Deborah, what is the latest on the situation in Idlib?
Well, these Russian airstrikes come basically after a 3-week lull in bombing in Idlib. There hasn't been any bombing during that time, just clashes on the ground. And it's interesting to note the timing. Whilst there's no direct correlation between the two, the Russian airstrikes come just hours after President Trump tweeted that warning of a grave humanitarian disaster in the area. It all takes place, of course, within this broader context where Syria is gearing up for a final showdown in Idlib, which is its last remaining rebel stronghold. But, of course, the biggest fear there is that there are nearly 3 million civilians in the area, and that could become, as the United Nations has said, a humanitarian catastrophe if a massive assault goes ahead. So a lot of tension in the region, and now today's bombings, which came just hours after that President Trump tweet. And Russia has said that these bombings are in retaliation for what it calls weaponized drone attacks yesterday.
Deborah, explain to our viewers what the strategic issues regarding Idlib are and why the Assad regime and its allies are targeting the region right now.
Well, essentially, President Assad of Syria has taken back, recaptured all the strongholds in Syria that were held by rebels except for Idlib. So Idlib is really the last remaining rebel stronghold and would allow him to essentially take full control of the country and win the civil war in that country. Of course, there will be many political ramifications from that. But as we've noticed, while it's strategic on Syria's side, this could be a humanitarian catastrophe. The United Nations is warning of that, and also President Trump has urged Russia and Iran not to allow an attack to go ahead that could be reckless and endanger the lives of civilians in the area. It's looking as if, more and more likely that this is inevitable, that something will happen. On Friday, Turkey, Iran and Russia will meet to discuss Idlib. Russia is saying that it is a nest of terrorists and that Syria has to deal with it. We've also seen that, backed by Russian military muscle, Syria has been amassing huge numbers of forces in the area in preparation for this final assault. And even here in Turkey, which is in charge of the de-escalation zone in that area, hundreds of Turkish military reinforcements have been sent to the area as well.
Yeah, the UN says as many as 800,000 people could be displaced. What's being done to stave off this possible humanitarian disaster?
I think the worrying thing is that you have to understand that many of the people in Idlib have already been displaced from other areas. So this will be a second attack. It's kind of the last area that they could flee to, essentially. If you imagine nearly 3 million civilians there trying to get out of this area, you're just going to have more and more refugees trying to get to places. What the United Nations wants is humanitarian corridors to be set up to allow people to flee the area. That may or may not be under discussion in this big meeting in Tehran on Friday, but certainly it is one thing that everybody is deeply concerned about. Turkey also been trying to sort of negotiate in the area as well, but so far it looks as if people sitting there are essentially sitting ducks for this terrible catastrophe that, should it go ahead, could happen in that area.
Debora Patta, thank you as always for your reporting.